home canning tool exists for a reason. Home canned recipes don't fail because we don't have the fanciest of tools. Home canning fails because we skip the ones that are absolutely necessary. Come on, I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. Back to Home Canning 101. We're getting back to basics. Hopefully you all are enjoying this series thus far, okay? Now, if you haven't seen the previous ones, please, I will put the card somewhere up here, and I will also leave the entire playlist at the very end of this video, okay? And I'm going to ask you to please share Home Canning 101, getting back to basics, with as many people as you can, so we can get everybody on board with home canning. Now, you all, we're going to go over the basic tools that you need in home canning. And we're not going to go over the fancy stuff or all of that, but we are going to go over the basic tools, the ones that are necessary to help you when you're home canning, make it a very smooth and enjoyable experience, okay? So let's go ahead and move to our tool number one. The first tool that we're going to go over today is our jar lifter, okay? I know, weird looking contraption, right? But this is a very helpful and important tool. This tool allows you to safely put your jars in your canners and safely take the jars out without banging the jars up against each other, without you splashing water on yourself trying to reach in and grab them with your hand. So this helps you to safely take the jars in and out of your canner, okay? For example, I have a jar of water right here, and this safely grips the jar around the lid, and it holds it, and you have to squeeze tightly up here, okay? You have to squeeze tightly up here, but it holds the jar, as you can see, no slip, right? I can move it up and down and everything, okay? But you do have to give a firm grip up here, because if you let go, let me back up. If you let go, look, of course the jar is going to fall. So you have to hold tightly up here. You have to grip it tight so that your jar won't slip and crash into other jars and possibly break your glass and all of that, okay? So this tool, this jar lifter, very, very important, okay? Now, another thing with this jar lifter is that they do come in fancy. They have some fancy ones out there, okay? They really do. But this is just the basic one. And this is the ball jar lifter that actually some time ago came inside of an entire kit, okay? So this is the jar lifter. I will do my best to leave a link to our Amazon shop. And if you go to our Amazon shop or store, I will do my best to leave the links to these items to make it easy for you to find, okay? So number one on the list the jar lifter. And again, you can get them as fancy as you like, but this is the basic one. Next on the list is our canning funnels, okay? Now they make different types of canning funnels. They make plastic and they make stainless steel funnels. They have some for regular mouth. They even have some for wide mouth, okay? So you can choose which ones that you like. They have the one that sits down inside of the jar, and then they actually have a funnel that sits over the top of the lid of the jar. But the entire purpose of the funnel is to make filling the jars easy. It'll reduce spills and clean up and all of that if things just spill over the side. So the funnels will help you to fill the jars easily and precisely. And again, they do have fancy ones, so you can choose whatever you like, okay? Now this is a hard plastic right here. This did not come inside of the ball kit that you probably could find, but you can find funnels online or in a local store like a Walmart or a place like that, and you'll be able to find funnels for canning, okay? But you definitely will want to get a funnel. Again, we're talking about basic tools. The next tool we're going to talk about is a very important tool. This is one that I absolutely make sure that I am never without, okay? And that's going to be my Headspacer debubbling tool, okay? This is the head spacing part. This is the debubbling part. This is a valuable tool. In fact, I'm going to tell you, you don't want to can just about anything without this tool, okay? It's very important, all right? Now let's talk quickly about the head spacing tool. The head spacing tool basically just measures the difference from the product in the jar to the rim of the jar. Every recipe that you can will come with its own required or recommended head spacing, okay? Now, for those of us who are more advanced in canning, we make some adjustments based upon recipes that we can for very good reason. And we'll talk about that at a later time, okay? But for basic canning, when you're dealing with your head spacing tool, you want to make sure that you follow the recipe. No matter what they tell you the head spacing is, go by that recipe, okay? If you're new to canning. For example, I have water in my jar here, and head spacing is important, okay? Because the correct head space is determined so that the jar can push out air as needed during the canning process, okay? So your head spacing, you want it to be accurate. So this tool comes with head spacing measurements on it, from 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch to 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch, okay? So my water here is approximately 1 inch, is approximately a 1 inch head space. So this is the, let me see. This is the 1 inch head spacing on this tool right here, okay? 1 inch right here, okay? So if I want to make sure I have a 1 inch head spacing, I'm going to put this right here for 1 inch. So when I sit this here and I look at the product in my jar, it should be right at the tip of this head spacing tool that's down inside the jar. So as you can see, for demonstration purposes, the water is not quite touching that tip. So that means I need to bring the water up a little bit higher to 1 inch, okay? Now, and I can see that because this is my water line, and here's the 1 inch right here on the lip of this jar right here, basically. So this would need to come up some in order for me to have an accurate 1 inch head space, okay? Now, the other side of this is the debubbling tool. The debubbling tool is critical for removing air pockets from the food that you put in the jar. Now this is water. You don't have to debubble a liquid, okay? But you do have to debubble solids. So even if I have soup, that's a liquid, but I have solids in the jar, right? I have liquid in the jar, but I have solids in the jar. So I have to debubble that. So let's just say this is my jar of soup. The way I would debubble is I would take this tool and I would go down the sides of my jar, right? I would go down each side like so. And what I'm doing is moving the food around. And as I move the food around, it's going to be releasing air pockets. You can literally see the air bubbles float up to the top as you move this around inside of your food product. And the more air pockets you release, the better, because then you can make sure that your jar gets a proper seal. If you don't debubble and release those air pockets, the chances of your lid failing to seal to the jar, those chances are very great, okay? So make sure you always debubble your product, okay? Very important tool. Now here's another debubbling tool. Remember, we're talking about plain tools, right? So this is a headspacing tool and a debubbler, but you may also run across one that looks like this. Now this is not a headspacing tool, but it is a debubbling tool that comes with a magnet. So this tool still works the same as this one. It's just longer, that's all, but it definitely debubbles as well. Now, one of the things I want to talk to you about when it comes to debubbling is using metal items to debubble your jars. I don't recommend, like for example, let's say you have a butter knife or something like that. I don't recommend using those kinds of utensils because number one, you could scratch the jar. You can even chip the jar if you bump it the wrong way or hit it the wrong way or a little too hard, right? So this is why you probably won't ever find a metal debubbling tool. They're all this type of plastic right here, okay? So now let's move on to the next tool. So here we are with our next important tool on the list. And that's gonna be, boom, bam, your lid magnet, okay? Remember this debubbling tool? This one comes with a magnet as well. But this is typically how those lid magnets are gonna come. Now, you won't find them inside of the ball kits anymore. If you are able to find a ball kit, these magnets no longer come inside of that kit. So if you are lucky enough to find a kit somewhere online with a magnet in it, that's good. Otherwise, you would be purchasing these separately, okay? But what's the purpose of the lid magnet? Let me show you. These lid magnets are used to safely lift the lids out of the water. This magnet safely lifts the lids out of the water so that you can put them on your jar, right? Now, one of the most important, I almost lost it, but the magnet caught it. One of the most important things to remember is that this magnet also prevents contamination, right? So if you have sterilized or sanitized lids, not necessarily sterilized, but they're clean, they're washed, right? They're sanitized, okay? And you're going to be putting clean lids on the jar. So the magnet does the work for you so that you don't have to put your hands that could have oils or any other debris. If you're canning, you never know. You could have food on them, right? So this right here protects the lid so that when you put the lid on the jar, you don't have to worry about contaminating the lid. It's not recommended that you just reach in and grab the lid and just put the lid on like so, right? Because you don't know if you could have gotten something underneath that will certainly prevent this jar from sealing once it comes out of the pressure canner. So this very tiny but mighty tool is very important in the canning process, okay? Now, another tool that I absolutely love, it's not necessary, but I find that it is a wonderful tool to have in my arsenal of basic canning tools for home canning. And that is my lid opener, okay? This little tool look all weird, and I'll admit, when someone first sent this to me as a gift, I'm like, how am I supposed to use this to open the lid? I mean, what am I supposed to do? You know, I mean, I'm trying to figure it out. But once I learned how to properly use the lid, I realized that I don't know what I was doing without it the whole time. Some people use spoons to open their jars. Some people use knives to open their jars. Some people use the traditional can opener to open their jars. And a traditional can opener will open it, but it will also dent the jar. And I know that when I'm done using my lids for canning, I love to save those used lids if I'm going to be using it for dehydrated items, right? To put in the jar, I can use those old lids. So using this kind of a tool, a lid opener, makes it so easy. All I would do is put this on like so. Can you see that? Yeah, like so. And I would lift up. And when you lift up on it, let's see. Try not to spill the water. When you lift up on it, it grabs the lid on the top. And it has this little lip right here that picks up the lid. And, well, it's not closed, so it don't want to cooperate. Yeah, it's not working because the lid is not on the jar. But it would literally pick up this lid for me. Okay, there it goes. It'll pick up the lid, and the lid will be in good shape. It won't put any dents or humps or nothing like that in it, and it'll be good for me to reuse for dehydrated foods. So I do love using this lid opening tool. The next set of tools I love to have on hand for home canning are these little baby bottle brushes right here, okay? These brushes come in handy for cleaning out my jars. Now, if you're going to be using the dishwasher, perfect, right? But if you are going to use a hand cleaning method to clean out your jars, these are great for the regular mouth jars because it is so difficult to get a hand inside of that little mouth on the jar, right? It's very difficult to get your hand in there, right? So having these little bottle brushes makes it easy to get inside, scrub the jars, right? Get in there and scrub real good. I even have a long handle bottle brush right here. I love this. And it even has the sponge on the top. And that allows me to get down in the bottom and, right? And really get it good and clean. And another thing is taking my washcloth and putting my washcloth around the top. And that allows me to go in with my washcloth as well and clean it really, really good. Now, if I had a wide mouth jar, then I would just take my washcloth and put my hand in and I could still clean it very, very good, okay? But having these two on hand, very important. Basic tools, but very, very helpful and very useful during the canning and the cleanup process, okay? Now, if you notice, I said washcloths, but I'm sure everybody has washcloths in their kitchen, right? So the next thing that I have that is very helpful for home canning are these dish drying mats. Now, my little dish drying mats I got at the day after Christmas sale from the Dollar General. I think I got them like 3 or 4 days after Christmas. And if I'm not mistaken, I paid anywhere from 25 cents or 10 cents a mat. And they are very thick. Now, they are old and they got, little lint balls on them and stuff, but I don't care. I use them for the purpose of when I take my hot jars out of the canner, I put this on my countertop. And I only need one because they're nice and thick. And when I take my hot jars out of the canner, I sit them on this mat, and this protects my countertops from the hot jars. So I have several of these, and the best time to get them is after Christmas, especially if you notice they have the little Christmas decorative ones. I think they even have them during the other holidays like Thanksgiving and Halloween. So if they don't sell out and you go after Christmas, you may be able to get a bargain on these little dish drying mats. But if not, you can always just order these online, okay? So dish drying mats, very helpful during home canning. The next important tool I have is a very important one. I say it all the time. My kitchen timer. I am the queen of kitchen timers. And I love my kitchen timer, okay? Now they have all kinds of timers. I have one on my refrigerator too. It's magnetic. But I do love my kitchen timer. And the one that I use is the OXO, and it has a 3-system timer here that allows me to have multiple timers going for different reasons. So I could be canning 2 different batches of something in 2 different canners. So it helps for me to have the multi-functional kitchen timer. All right. So, and actually when I bought this, if you all go look at the cost of this, you're going to be like, I'm not paying for, I understand. I didn't pay that amount either. In fact, I got it for more than 50% off of what they're charging for it now, right? So I've had this timer for a while, but I do love this timer right here. And it helps you to keep track of things. So if I'm pressure canning something, I set a timer. If I'm venting, I set a timer. If I have to have something cooking in here to go in the canner, I set a timer. I'm going to use my timer because it helps me to stay on track, and I'm not trying to second guess. Has it been 10 minutes or has it been 9 minutes or how long has it been? No, I have this timer. Now my stove also has a timer on it that I never use because I can hardly hear it. When the timer goes off, it's not very loud, right? And plus it's only one timer. So having this, and it's loud, right? So let me just set a timer for 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. You hear that? I can hear that all the way in the back, okay? It's a nice loud timer, right? And it keeps going. So a timer, very important tool in home canning. Now, these next 2 items, I definitely use when I am home canning. One is a must-have and the other is more of a want, okay? But what are they? Well, number one, the must-have is a marker, all right? Using a Sharpie to label your jars once they have cooled down after canning will allow you to keep track of when you can that item, right? And exactly what's in the jar. Sometimes people will can items and they'll just put the date on. And then if you have a lot of foods that look alike, you could be saying, what is this? I don't know exactly what this is, right? But if you take the time to actually write on the lid of your jar, okay? So if, let's just say this is sterilized water, then on the lid of my jar, I would write sterilized water, and I would put the month and the year, not necessarily the day. That's not as important to me as the month. So I would put 12/25 on this jar and sterilized water. And that lets me know what's inside, right? When I can butternut squash and cushaw, once they come out of the canning process, and cushaw is also a type of squash, once they come out of the canning process, they look identical. So how do I know which one is which? I have to label it. I just don't put squash. I have to label it specifically. So I would put butternut squash, 12/25, or cushaw, 12/25. So when I look at the lid, I'll know what it is, because just looking at the product, those 2 things could look just alike. All right. Now the optional here is the labels. I love these little cute labels. So if I'm going to be canning something and I'm going to be sharing it or giving it away, I like to put the little cute labels on, right? And then there are some things that I home can that are just so cute that I decide I'm going to put a label on it, right? So either I will put and actually when I put the label on, either I will put the label on top, or I don't put it over the cute decorative part of the jar. I turn it around to this side and I will put it on the jar, okay? And it just makes the jar look so cute to me, right? So this is just one of those little simple pleasures that I add to my own personal canning tool list and supply list for home canning, okay? But you definitely are going to want to need a marker so that you can label it. And I use the Sharpie, and you want it to be a permanent marker. You don't want it to wipe off real easy, all right? Because even if you use a Sharpie and you write on the lid, you can't wipe on that right away. You have to give it a little bit to dry. Otherwise, even the Sharpie will wipe right off the lid, okay? Especially if the jar is a little bit too warm or too hot. So you want to make sure that you label. Now, when do you label? Of course, if you're going to put paper on, you put those on after they come out of the canner. And when I write on my lids, I put I write on the lid after the jar comes out of the canner. Some people like to pre-label before the jars even go in the canner, right? And it's fine. The choice is yours. But the most important thing is to make sure you write on the lid what it is and the date and year that you canned it, okay? And last but not least, these are tools that I absolutely must have when I am canning, okay? And that is going to be a ladle, okay? Now, I have two of them here for a very good reason. Because this is just your standard kitchen ladle, right? And I use this quite a bit. In fact, I love using this. This is your standard kitchen ladle, and this helps you when you are ladling food into your jars. You're putting this into the jar and you're ladling food in through the funnel. Of course, the funnel helps keep everything together, right? So you don't have food falling all out of the jars and all of that. The ladle makes it easy for you to scoop in whatever it is that you just finished cooking in your pot or whatever, soup, it doesn't matter. And it helps make it easy for you to ladle everything in, right? Now, this is just a standard ladle, but this is actually a canning ladle. And as you can see, it even has a little hook on the other side so that you can hook it onto the pot if you need to, right? So this is actually a canning ladle, and you can see how deep it is. So that allows you to scoop up quite a bit out of the pot and ladle it into your funnel, which will then, the food will go down into the jar. Nothing will come all out of the sides of the jar, right? So the ladle just makes it very, very, very easy, okay? So a ladle is also another good tool. If you have just a basic kitchen ladle, use it. Don't go out and buy another ladle unless you just want to, right? This will do, because this is what I use, okay? This is what I use the majority of the time, actually, all right? But if you want a canning ladle specifically for home canning, this is going to be the tool that you need. And yes, this will make the job a whole lot easier. As you can see, this is a lot deeper. It holds twice as much as my little stainless steel ladle, but this is perfect for home canning, all right? Now I'm going to show you one more ladle that I love to use. This ladle here is also a go-to for me. What makes this ladle so special, okay? Let me show you. This ladle has holes in it, okay? So if I'm ladling in food inside of my jar and I want to make sure I get a certain amount of solid in the jar. Let's say that I'm canning a soup and I want to get a certain amount of food solids in the jar. I will use my ladle with the holes in it so that when I'm ladling out the food, the broth can drip through the holes, and then I can put the solids only. So let's just say I only want a half a jar of solids in here, right? So I would use this ladle. And I would put in my potatoes and carrots and beans and peas and greens and lettuce and tomatoes. But anyway, I would put in the amount that I want. So let's just say I want half a jar. So I would ladle that in until I get to a half a jar, right? And then I would switch to my regular ladle and I would fill it up the rest of the way with nothing but broth, okay? I would fill it up the rest of the way with the broth, okay? And that makes it easier for me, right? So tools. Is that a must-have, the ladle with the holes? No. But does it make it easier for me in my canning projects? Yes, it does. All right? So, again, canning ladles are a big help during the canning process. So I hope you have enjoyed this particular segment of Home Canning 101, Getting Back to Basics, where we are just simply talking about the basic home canning tools that would definitely be beneficial to you in home canning. And remember, the tools don't have to be fancy, just practical. That's all. They don't have to be fancy. The basic stuff will do the trick, okay? And if you choose to get fancy, get fancy. There's nothing wrong with that. All right. Now I'm going to post the link to the entire playlist of Home Canning 101, Getting Back to Basics right at the end of this video. And hopefully you all are enjoying these video segments thus far. So thank you all again for watching Homestead Heart. Don't worry, we're going to be talking about pressure canners and water bath canners coming up soon. So thank y'all for watching. Peace and blessings, and I'll see y'all in the next video.